Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Super Mario Bros. 3. In the last part we finished off World 4 and got through most of World 5, and now we're going to continue that pattern and do the same for Worlds 5 and 6, more than likely. So I mentioned last part, there's like 2 or 3 levels I recommend using a P-Wing in here in World 5. Meet the final one. 5-9 is, I think, the only technically diagonally structured level in the game, and it is a long auto-scroller over constant bottomless pits. With a lot of moving platforms, this level's rough. I'd argue this is maybe 3 least favorite levels in the game. Potential right here. Even if you use the P-Wing, you do want to be careful, because the fire chomps, I think, can still hurt you, but if you mash hard enough, you're probably going to be out of the way of them being able to hit you just because you're that far off screen. At least I think that can happen. Just be careful, essentially, with this level. Especially when it comes to getting in the pipe. Oh god, where am I? Okay. And there we go. Which means now we're on to the World 5 airship. Little redundant having an airship in the clouds, but oh well. So from memory, the major change this airship has, outside of its boss fight being a little different than most of them, is, I think this one introduces the rotating cannons, which can fire 4 ways diagonally or in the main 4 cardinals, depending on where in its rotation it is. That said, still an auto-scroller. Got a lot to deal with here. If anything, this is where the airships do, they generally start at least increasing the amount of active projectiles at any point in time. But as long as you have, like, a raccoon leaf, or are taking your time staying towards the left of the screen until the right side can spawn in so you can see what's going up ahead, you shouldn't have much to worry about. This particular portion right here weirdly reminds me of Cutman stage from Mega Man 1. I do have to wonder, though, how levels like this would have worked if the original plans for Mario 3 had gone through. Because when the game started development, apparently it was going to be a top-down game akin to Zelda, but they couldn't figure out a way to make Mario's jumping work well with that. And it makes me wonder if it's just because they were going for, like, a non-isometric view, because even, not for nothing, isometric platformers are better than top-down platformers in most cases. Either way, boss fight this time around is Roy Koopa. He's the first big one of the bunch, and whenever he hits the ground, be it when he's invincible between hits, or just jumping period, he makes the ground shake. And what's annoying about that is, like with the sludge enemies, if you're on the ground when that happens, you're paralyzed for a few seconds, and he can just easily walk or jump into you from there. So watch out. That's World 5 done, though. The latter half where the theme kicks in is honestly kind of rough just because of how many bottomless pits there are. But there are definitely far worse worlds. For instance, even though I'm usually a fan of the theme myself, the next one. Greetings. Be careful in the ice world. The creatures trapped in the ice will come to life if formed. I've enclosed a jewel that helps protect you. Princess Toadstool. World 6 is our ice world, and has a really, really eerie world map theme that would later become the mysterious mail theme in Paper Mario Thousand Year Door. So being the ice world, the ice blocks that you can see, of course, have ice physics, which means your momentum's all screwy, but you can also keep up some good speed while doing it. Just be careful when you try to reverse directions without jumping. With that said, there are many blocks you can just use the fire flower to melt, and that can be kind of dangerous in some portions, as it'll free enemies or coins. Not every ice block can be melted, though the ones that we're seeing on screen, basically, those can never be melted. It's usually smaller blocks that are about the size of the munchers from earlier in the game. Something I'm very much not a fan of in this level, though, that will show up over here and there for the rest of the game, not too often, though, is the Patuis. They are a walking piranha plant enemy that spew a projectile up in the air back and forth. I just weirdly find them hard to predict, so I just don't like going up against them unless I have a fire flower. World 6, though, can be annoying for one very particular reason. I want to say, if it's not the longest world, it's the second longest, which means you're dealing with a lot of ice physics throughout the area. Plus, it's, I think, literally the widest world in terms of, like, screen sizes. In fact, I think the next level sets the tone pretty well for the rest of the world, because if memory serves, 5-2 is an auto-scroller? think I'm doing pretty well right now at 67 lives. How do you think? Once you even get above 30 lives, honestly, I'd say you're probably safe from any major game overs that could happen to you. I'm just going to see how many I can get, period, really. But yeah, autoscroller with ice physics. Fun. Over bottomless pits. More fun. I remember thinking growing up that this had to be another level where you could get a P-switch to get at the white mushroom house, but that's only because it just has a strange amount of brick blocks and just free-floating coins, which is usually what those types of levels tend to have. No, there's not really much to worry about here in that regard. And here's what I mean about them shifting up the scrolling speed every here and there, so be careful. Something I never really interacted with too much when it came to Mario 3, though, was its own cartoon. Adventures of Super Mario Bros. 3 is easily the Nintendo show from the old 80s Captain Lou Albano Mario era I have seen the least. Because I grew up with a VHS of some of the episodes of Super Show, and I've seen many more of them since. In fact, I think I've seen the entire show by now. I've seen the entire Zelda show, I've seen most of Captain N. And I've seen a good amount of Mario World episodes. I think I've only seen one Mario 3 episode. I've seen more Pac-Man cartoon than I have Mario 3, I think. And from what I hear, probably for the best, because I hear that the Mario 3 show is easily the worst animated out of all of them. So, given how Captain N looks, that's kind of impressive on its own right. Honestly, though, at this point in the game is when I would usually start to try to avoid the Hammer Brothers however I can. Because by now I usually have more than enough of their rewards, or the rewards just aren't useful to me. Like that hammer's meant to open up this pipe, which I believe allows you to get to another mushroom house? In fact, you can see I'm struggling just to use items here like spamming mushrooms just to lessen my inventory count. But let's see, the last level we did was a ice physics mess over bottomless pits. What's the next level? You know that sentence I just finished the first half of? It's that again. Because 6-3 is not that different from 6-2 besides the fact it's not an auto-scroller. Now that I think about it though, this level is a case where I can talk about this because I didn't talk about it earlier in the game. Whenever you're holding a Koopa shell, be careful how far you are away from a block when you throw it. Because if you're further than 1 block's distance away, you will take damage from the shell bouncing back, but they actively make it so that if you're right next to it, you won't. Which I believe is a way to try to avoid the Mario 1/Lost Levels 1-up trick, at least for this particular entry. You can use that to get some items here and there, but you can also just use a raccoon tail to do that, so I do like that the raccoon tail is at least a very common item. Like, I'd say it's honestly more common than the fire flower throughout the game. And I like it when games are like, alright, here's our key power-up, we're gonna use it a lot. Oh, there's ice physics. The things I do for the extra 1-ups. With that, I believe we're about to head into our first fortress here in World 6. The first of 3. 6 Fortress 1 is really short, but it has a trap that could very easily kill beginner players, because this moving platform here, when it reaches the end of its track, will fall. You need to jump off before you hit the spikes. Thankfully, it's not like what some games will do, or even what the final level of this very game will do, where there's a bottomless pit there, but you should still be a little careful, you know? Either way, the biggest threat here is easily just the amount of roto-discs they place all over the place. Because Boom-Boom, as usual, is Boom-Boom. Honestly, Boom-Boom is sometimes harder, less for Boom-Boom himself, and more for Boom-Boom's room. Because if you're not careful, Boom Boom's room will be your Toom Toom. By the way, you wanna know something that drives me absolutely insane that I know is about to happen? Keep an eye on where the HUD is pixel-wise, especially right here. It's there, and now it's there. Between the overworld and in-game, they raise and lower it by only a few pixels, and I don't know why, but that bothers me. Like, you're so close to having it in the same place. Why even change it? Like, I can understand why they maybe wouldn't have the image centered because of some overscan stuff back on older TVs. I'll always think about World 6, though, and remember that it was a big wall for me for a while in the game. Because growing up, this was one of those games where I got through more of it in waves. Like, when I first played as a very little kid, the furthest I could get was Boss Bass consistently. Then after that, I maybe got to 5-9 and was just stuck there because, God, I hate that diagonal autoscroller. That's probably why I still use P-Wings on it to this day. But World 6 in general was just a wall for like a year and a half to me whenever I came back to the game because ice physics I could not grasp, and I still have trouble with them in some games today, but other ones I'm just used to them by now. On top of that, the next level doesn't help because the next level is one of my least favorite despite it not being that much harder. Going back to that development thing I was saying a bit ago about the top-down, though, it is a little wild looking back at this game's release dates. Because, like, we were used to getting games about a year later from Japan for a while, but this was almost a year and a half to close to 2 years, I think. Like, I think this was like an October '88 game in Japan, and it was a early 1990 release here. I'd say the latest I would excuse, like, the full year plus gap for games being released between Japan and the States is probably the late PS2. By the time we got to the PS3, we should have gotten more worldwide releases, but we really didn't until late PS3, early PS4 kind of generation timing. 3DS was when we started at least getting that for Pokemon, at the least. And then, as a Trails fan, I still have to go through that a lot. Thanks a lot, Nippon Ichi Software of America. Thanks a lot. Thanks. I'll get to those games at some point. I have plans, but I have to do other games first. Okay, so World 6, 5 here is a kind of annoying one. Because you need to have a shell here in some form and be able to fly to get up here and take out these white munchers with it in order to reach the end. If you go straight forward through the end of the stage to the right, you just loop back to the left. So you have to search, and if you don't have the right item, you might be screwed there. I believe if you go through the pipe, maybe the item respawns, but it's been a hot minute since I didn't take that level super carefully, so I don't entirely remember, even. Just be careful. Oh, baby. That there is the Hammer Brothers suit, allowing us to turn into Hammer Mario, the best power-up in this game. Which is why it's really weird that it especially has never shown back up, despite the Tanuki suit unmindedly being more iconic. The thing is about the Hammer Brothers suit, if memory serves, there is only one set way to get one of them. From a large question mark block in a level that's, I forget if it's later in this world or in World 7. They are extraordinarily rare, but they are very powerful. Because it can kill things that cannot be killed by anything else outside of maybe usually the Karibo shoe in the case you could take it out of the level it's in. It's really good, but because it's so good, I'm gonna be saving it for later. World 6, I think this is like 6-6 now. It's the only water level in the ice world, which I'm a little thankful about. But it is a little annoying in that it is pretty tight spaces in the water when it comes to the Cheep Cheep, so maybe either bring in a fire flower or just bring yourself in with the mushroom and grab the native fire flowers you can get, because it's going to make your survivability down here a lot better. But then again, that's how it's been in the water levels since Mario 1. Always go in with a fire flower of some sort, or an ice flower if it's an option, and just use it to your survival best. Use it for your best survival. Oh yeah, this is also the game that introduced spikes, these little green guys. They walk and occasionally spawn a chain ball to throw at you. They're not threatening in this game, but they are threatening in other games. Because they're a lot faster at throwing things and they can usually aim more directly at you instead of just in a straight line. Now, the next level is a little bit of an interesting one, despite it doing nothing much mechanically different than what the rest of this world's done. Like, it's an auto-scroller, there's some ice physics, blah, blah, blah. I think it might be one of the earliest levels we've seen with donut blocks, which I don't think I've talked about those at all yet in this LP. This is to get introduced them for the series. Donut blocks, you stand on them long enough, they fall. Later games would make it so that they eventually respawned, if you're given enough time on screen, but I think here in Mario 3, once they fall, they're just gone. What makes the level so interesting is that it's another White Mushroom House spawning stage. What's really rough, though, is, you know how a few parts ago I said probably the hardest White Mushroom House to spawn is the first one in World 2? I forgot that this next stage had one when I said that, honestly. Because the usual Mushroom Houses take maybe less than 30 coins to spawn, and there's usually a little room of error barring the one in World 2. There is no margin of error to get this Mushroom House to spawn. In this decently long auto-scroller, you have to get all 78 coins over a pit of bottomless death, where you have very strict timing on the mushroom blocks to grab them before they get scrolled off screen. This level is rough if you want to do that. And it's not even worth it because the reward for that Mushroom House is another anchor. And at this point, there's only 2 airships left in the game? So if you've even done the ones I have, you probably already have 2 anchors. So, honestly, if this was like another forced spawn of the Hammer Brothers suit, it would be a lot more worth going after, but even then, like, not really. Secrets in games are cool, but when secrets are hard to get but not worth their effort, it's sometimes very annoying. I say this as a trophy hunter. God, I'll never forget going after some of those Yakuza Platinums. One day I'll play Yakuza 7, I still have it. At this point I'm probably just waiting until I get to some of my PS4 backlog, which I am doing slowly. And there's some of the blocks you can melt with fire. A bit late in the world to introduce this from memory, but oh well. But now for one of my favorite fortresses, honestly. 6 Fortress 2 is a very straightforward ice level, but with cramped enough quarters that it actually forces you to interact in a way I find fun. And if you wanted to, I could recommend bringing a Hammer Brothers suit in here, because the Hammer Brothers hammers that it throws, which go in a really high arc, we'll see it down the line. Oh, that question mark block is haunted. It can kill thwomps and boos, so you can make this level a complete non-issue when it comes to the enemies. You just gotta be careful of them, that they're ice physics. And I want to say it can kill Rotodiscs. I actually don't remember about that. I think that might just be the Kribo shoe that can do that. Honestly though, one of the worst feelings in Mario 3 is getting a rare power-up drop from a Toad House like a Frog Suit before World 3 or a Tanuki suit early on, and then accidentally grabbing a different item. I can't tell you the amount of times I have entered, I want to say it's 3-1, the water level where you can just go down straight away to the left to grab a power-up, and have just gotten rid of a frog suit. Way too many times. I hate that it's a consistency almost. But now we're on to probably the most straightforward level in World 6, 6-8. It's a normal overground level straight out of World 1 almost. There's some ice blocks you can grab, but otherwise it's not really themed to the ice world. The biggest thing to note in it is that towards the end of the level, there is a P-switch you can hit, and it doesn't look like it does much at first, but if you fly up in the air from there, there's a giant host of brick blocks where you can get probably about 50 coins each time you do it. So if you just take a death, use a mushroom, or grab the items early on the stage, you can probably farm for lives here decently well enough, I guess. It's above me right about now. And you could probably use this space right here to grab the P speed you need to actually fly up there. Oh, great, another spade panel. I totally need more items at this point. Why am I still doing these? Past me, stop! It's not worth the 1-up and the 10 coins that I can still get at this point. No! But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 6, we're finishing off World 6, going to World 7. It's all a pattern at this point. Woo! See you guys then.